Ay, caramba!
What? Greetings, Wanderer. This is Atlas here, and welcome to the Void. Today I'm going to be reacting and breaking down a song called Sleeping in the Cold Below from the Warframe original soundtrack. This is the first time that I'm going to be reacting and breaking down a song from this particular video game. However, I am not so far from being acquainted with this video game because I did play for a couple of months this game like 2 or 3 years ago, more or less. And the game is really good. I mean, I was very surprised on the quality of the game, considering it's a free-to-play game. I love the whole mythos of the Tennos and so on and so forth, and some of the factions in the game are really cool too. However, since I haven't played it in such a long time, I can't actually remember the music or the story or whatsoever. The only factions that I remember are the Tennos and the Grenier, but there are a couple more ones that I got to know while I was playing the game. I never heard this track before. This is an actual coffee request that I had scheduled for this month, and this one is coming from Zero Paradigm, and the comment says, "Greetings, Atlas. I was hoping you would cover Sleeping in the Cold Below from Warframe's Call of the Tempestarii quest. There is some dialogue before this song plays that provides some context. I was working in an exosuit when the Tempestarii, a ship, destroyed the Lucretia platform, a space station. I drifted for days among the frozen fragments of my crew. My sisters and I dreamed their dead gaping mouths were singing with me yet. Really hope you enjoyed this one. However, before I jump into it, I would like to invite you to check my newest merch. If you like Dark Souls and Berserk, I know you're going to dig it quite a lot. And also, please check out my newest track, which is also a Berserk-inspired track called Conceived in Blood. You're going to be able to check the new merch and the new song in the cards, but also I'm going to be leaving a link in the description of this video, okay? And with that said, onward. All right, let's check it out. This is, where the hell is the song? Okay, here it is. Sleeping in the Cold Below from Warframe. Boom.
So it's into the void, now me girls and me boys, from mother's hands we go. We'll be sailing to the sun till the voyage is done, then we'll be sleeping in the cold below.
No way.
Sisters below, we're going where the winds don't blow. Yes, we're all bound down to the deep, and we'll all be sleeping in the cold below, sleeping in the cold below. Our sailing ships for the hard and the quick, we roll our load and go.
What?
There's a living to be made, or there's hell to pay when you're sleeping in the cold below. Sisters below, we're going where the winds don't blow. Yes, we're all bound down to the deep, and we'll all be sleeping in the cold below, sleeping in the cold below.
This is so cool. It's basically like a sea shanty.
Man on high with the devil in his eye and a golden hand, I'm told. It can hurt you, it can hold you, he can kick you or console you when you're sleeping in the cold below. Sisters below, we're going where the winds don't blow. Yes, we're all bound down to the deep, and we'll all be sleeping in the cold below, sleeping in the cold below.
This is so cool.
Oh, sisters, you so wise and true. When it's my time to go, won't you lay me down under granum crowns, and I'll be sleeping in the cold below, below, sleeping in the cold below. Sisters, below, below, we're going where the winds don't blow. Yes, we're all bound down to the deep, and we'll all be sleeping in the cold. Sisters, below, below, we're going where the winds don't blow. Yes, we're all bound down to the deep, and we'll all be sleeping in the cold below, below, sleeping in the cold below, below.
So good.
In the cold below. Today we sail on the solar rail, for there's much we just don't know. So farewell with a kiss, then it's fast for the mist, till we're all sleeping in the cold below.
That was it, right? Ooh! Oh, that was the end. Okay. Yeah, I thought it ended in that part. Okay. Okay, so in the breakdown, we're going to be talking about why it works in regards to the premise that already Sir Paradigm told me and you about the game, okay? So we're going to be doing that, and also we're going to be breaking down the lyrics. So let's break it down. Okay, so the first thing that I want to do is, of course, as I often do, is break down the lyrics. Okay, so the first verse says, "So it's into the void now, me girls and me boys. From mother's hands we go. We will be sailing to the sun till the voyage is done. Then we will be sleeping in the cold below." Okay, so in the first verse, we already can see or understand that it's very much related to the premise that Sir Paradigm was telling us about, which was that this character was working in an exosuit when this attack happened. So, of course, being in the exosuit, this person was already in space doing something, I don't know, maintenance or some sort of daily activity, maybe, in the space station or something like that. And the attack happened, and this person, of course, being in the suit, was able to survive in space for days and days on. So, in the verse, we are able to read that it's talking about the void, which is, of course, the endless space, outer space, and it's talking about also maybe some sort of glimpse into how the society of this faction, let's say, is, because it says, "From mother's hands we go." However, something has me puzzled, because it says now me girls and me boys, but I'm kind of guessing, or I'm kind of getting the vibe that this faction is sort of a matriarchy sort of society, because it says only sisters afterwards, and Sir Paradigm said that I drifted for days among the frozen fragments of my crew, my sisters. There's no mention of men in the in that premise, but also in the lyrics is pretty much self-explanatory that it talks about the crew, which is only women. So that gives us a window, or at least for me, because I don't know about this, of course, but it gives me like a glimpse. But maybe this faction is pretty much a matriarchy, or women are the ones that hold the power in this society. Now the chorus says, "Sisters below, below, we're going where the winds don't blow. Yes, we are all bound down to the deep, and we'll be sleeping in the cold below, below, sleeping in the cold below." Okay, this is a very clever part. We're going where the winds don't blow. Of course, that's outer space, right? But at the same time, by watching the video a little bit, you can see that the ship and this woman, this character, which I suppose is the character that survived the attack, is in a watery scenery. So this leads me to believe that the society not only is a kind of is a matriarchy, but also is a matriarchy that lives like their main planet, their home planet is a water planet, for the most part at least, and they seem to be like how do you call it, seafarers or something like that. They are very much adept to oceans and sea. So of course they not only have fleets, navy fleets in their planet, but also space fleets, of course, which could very well be blurred in the lines in between them, because maybe they have technology. I know I'm going on a tangent here, but it's kind of interesting to me to imagine this, that maybe they have like a fleet that serves both ways, right? Like the space fleet, it's very effective fighting in water environments too. Like it can be also a sea ship or boats, whatever it may be, exactly the same as their role in space. So yeah, the lyrics, quite honestly, spoke to me a lot about what could potentially be the setting of this, of not only the battle, but it talked more about where this character comes from their everyday kind of thing, which plays a huge role into the sea shanty thing, and I'm going to be explaining that later. But it's very important that the lyrics were written this way. They are very simple. They are the storytelling is very simple, but at the same time very effective, because it's very easy to understand. Not a lot of cryptic things at all, other than maybe things that are very precisely or literally related to the lore of the game. But I'm going to be talking more in depth about that, because that is a very important thing to consider when you're doing a sea shanty song. Okay, now let's talk about the music itself and the composition and so on and so forth. And I think that in this particular case, I would like to approach the song a little bit different and talk about the things that I particularly would have considered to make this song happen, and also what the reasons that particularly could have led the composer of this track to actually make it for the video game. Okay, so before I talk about the sea shanties and so on and so forth, I would like to again recall the fact that I think that this is a matriarchy society that is seafaring, or it's very much adept to the seas and the ocean, which of course, if you take that into consideration into what as a very particularly and quintessential description of what this faction is in the game, then the sea shanty starts to make way more sense, right? Just by that fact. But I'm going to give you additional reasons why the sea shanty in a science fiction game works perfectly. And one of just to mention something very brief about the sea shanty is that the first time that I heard something so cool done in sea shanties in a game was in Assassin's Creed Black Flag, which is probably my second favorite Assassin's Creed game, because the first one is Assassin's Creed 2. But my second favorite one was Black Flag. Very closely my favorite. My second favorite, apologies. And, well, of course, the sea shanties in that game make way more sense because, the whole setting is in the Caribbean. I think the time period is in the 17th century or something like that. It's very much within more real, historically accurate things, let's say. But when we take this sort of primordial kind of genre of music, in the sense that it was created, or the genre became more widespread a long time ago. Of course, I'm not talking about thousands of years ago, but who knows? Maybe it goes even back there. But I'm talking more about this even culture about the sea shanties in the maybe to the 18th or 17th century and on and so on and so forth. Especially in England, the British Isles and the whole British Isles and maybe other parts of Europe where, it became like a cultural thing, more than just songs that people sang. It became like a cultural thing within the society at the time. But before I jump into that part, because I don't want to get ahead of myself, I just want to talk about very much specifically about how this sea shanty is different from what we would consider traditional sea shanties. Okay, so the first thing that makes this sea shanty like a modern take on what a sea shanty is, although it has a lot of those traditional elements, I would say, is that first of all, the vocal performance, it doesn't have like a very super aggressive accent. More traditional sea shanties, of course, have Scottish accents, Irish accents, and so on and so forth. And of course, when we read the lyrics, there's a part that says, "Now me girls and me boys," is trying to give it that edge, that historical accuracy, let's say, or cultural accuracy. It's a better way to put it. And that was a very nice touch, but at the same time, we can hear that the song, in terms of the accent, is not done in a very particularly traditional accent, like I said before, like from the Irish or from or some very, very how do you say this? The very particular English accent, or from Scotland or anything like that. So that's one of the things that makes it even, I think, more accessible. But because remember, this is a science fiction game, and probably there's like an unifying sort of accent for many reasons. Probably the main one is to be able to understand what the hell is the singer saying and the characters in the game are saying. Very specifically, if this particular song they chose this particular song as a single, let's say, for an expansion of the game or something like that. So those are things to consider. You know, if you have a very thick accent in the lyrics, it could take away from the potential, I don't know, success in terms of people being able to understand it and not disregard it, let's say, as something very regional. You know, you wanted to probably the composers or this decision came even above him to say, like, don't do a super thick accent because we want this to be more of a global kind of thing, so people can understand and it has more reach to other regions. Okay, so yeah, that might be a possibility, you know. But also the vocal performance has this pop kind of swagger to it, by how the phrasing and the articulation and the cadence of the singing is also. And lastly, there's a little bit of a rock element in it, even though, you know, there's not a drum kit or anything, or you don't hear electric guitars or whatsoever. But I think I heard some Queen in the song. Maybe it's not in an obvious way, but you know, sea shanty's been so famous worldwide in terms of its cultural relevancy, that it's very much associated with you know, Britain, and you know, that involves, of course, and I'm not even talking about, you know, the countries that are included in Great Britain. Maybe you can be outside of that confederation of countries, but you are in the British Isles, so it will be, you know, those countries like Scotland, Ireland, Wales, England. Those very specific countries are very much, at least in the popular zeitgeist, let's say, attributed to this kind of genres, or the sea shanties specifically. So who knows? Maybe even Queen got some of their elements in their music from sea shanties. That's something that I wouldn't particularly disregard, let's say. Okay, so now that I've talked about the potential premise that is in the storytelling of the lyrics, and also this is very specific thing, because this is talking about a very specific thing that happens within the game, which is a person that gets adrift in space, and the sea shanty gives this particular tale more of a castaway, you know, kind of feel, because this person being drifted away in space is a very good parallelism for what could have happened to this woman in her home planet, with a ship being destroyed and she being adrift in the ocean or something like that. You know, it's almost exactly the same thing, although you could potentially argue that yes, space it's a little bit more dangerous, but yeah, they're very much almost the same thing. So taking those things into consideration, and the thing that I was saying about the lyrics being so easy to understand, very simple, very to the point, very cool mentions of things that help you build the you know, where this character comes from, and so on and so forth, are many of the quintessential things that lyrics in traditional sea shanties, you know, throughout history have. You know, that very simple structure of storytelling, things that are from daily life, you know, which is also in the lyrics. And why is that? Why is it that the lyrics are written this way? Because in my opinion, sea shanties, other than, yes, the very beautiful melodies and so on and so forth, and these folk, very uplifting kind of things that are in the music, it's at the end, it's the lyrics and the melodies within the lyrics and the harmonies with the vocals and so on and so forth. It's all about what the lyrics are saying. Why is that? Well, you could potentially say that, that's the lyrics is all about I mean, all the music that is sang is all about the lyrics. Yes, you could potentially say that, but there's something very specific about sea shanties that makes this more remarkable, and it is that sea shanties were or are, I think that they will be considered still a working class kind of music. And this is incredibly important to mention because it looks like this woman that was in the exosuit was probably doing something very working class. Of course, we think exosuits and stuff like that's very fancy if we talk about it in to our reality, of course. But remember, this is a science fiction universe, and this that kind of thing is very probably like people that, I don't know, like a carpenter or any other sort of profession that we see as a very, you know, common thing to do. Like it's been around thousands of years. So that's probably what she was doing in outer space, something that probably generations and generations of people have been doing for a long time. Just taking, just repairing something or in the space station or whatever it may be, or you know, something like that. So taking that into consideration, and probably the composer did the research, or you know, he was very acquainted with the game and what it was about, the factions that are within the game, and how this particular tale is very much a working class tale. Absolutely. It's just a person that was working in outer space in its exosuit, and the space station got attacked by this ship, and this person was adrift among her fallen sisters, frozen in space. Another very interesting characteristic that sea shanties have is that they are both uplifting and melancholic at the same time. And why is that? Well, because remember that I'm not gonna go so far to say like where the sea shanties originated. If it was like 1,000 years ago with the Greeks, I don't know, going between Greece and the islands that are near the continent or whatnot. I don't know. I don't really know. But I'm gonna focus on what could potentially be like the sea shanty golden age. Let's say like the 17th century, 18th century, and so on and so forth. Maybe even before that. Those were harsh times, very brutal times, you know. And people that worked in the sea, and still people that work in ships, you know, freighters, fishing boats, whatever you can think of that takes place in the sea or the ocean, that job is brutal, especially fishing. Like it's a very harsh job, you know. It's still to this day, but back in the day it was even harder. So yeah, if we take all these elements, it's basically almost like the same thing. Working class. This woman was doing a job in her exosuit in space, and got adrift. Same stories, real stories within our reality. People that, a ship went under, and all the people died, and there was this lone survivor that was adrift in the ocean for a long time. Those are the kind of stories that you would hear in old sea shanties and maybe new sea shanties. They probably still doing more and more, because there's always new stories to tell, even though they can very much share similarities, you know. But it always comes to the personal tale, you know, the tale of a very specific person that went through that. So the composer did an excellent job. Thinking about, you know what, maybe we can do a sea shanty in a science fiction universe like Warframe, because even though you would think like, yeah, well, it's a Warframe, the Warframe original soundtrack should be all about synthesizers and so on and so forth, or maybe like an orchestral kind of thing also, that also works, but no, synthesizers will be like the way to go. He understood that within this particular story in the game, in this quest line, a sea shanty could absolutely work, because it's absolutely congruent with what happens in the game, and the faction and everything that surrounds it. That, of course, it's valid as long as my premise that I said that this faction is a matriarchy and they live in a home planet of sea and ocean or whatever it is. But even if it is not like that, you can also think about space and the stories that you hear from the ocean and the sea very much alike. They are very much alike in the sense that both were traveled by explorers and people that did working class jobs, and they both got lost in the ocean or the sea. Many of them died, you know, drowned, and people got adrift in the ocean and so on and so forth. Same thing that happened in space with this character. So yeah, there you have it. I'm gonna give this track a golden badge. I really enjoyed it. It was very cool. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like and share it with your friend. Also, please don't forget to visit my Patreon, my Ko-fi profile, and my Ko-fi store in case you want to support my work further, and my Teespring merch shop. And of course, ex nihilo nihil fit.